and welcome to Unit 3 review. We are, of course, in week 4, so we're kind of moving through the course quite well. So I want to take just a few moments to go through some of the work that you've done. I'm doing it slightly different this week because I think it's important for us to kind of see and to also kind of understand a few, I guess you'd say, observations, but also so I can give you some feedback. Um, in regards to Unit 3, I think most of you did a great job of engaging the topic of naturalism, specifically in the sense that it is a more pessimistic friend of realism in a way. But I would take it even further than just being a friend or an offshoot. I think naturalism is a reaction to realism. Realism did have a moral component. It kind of expressed the best wish or the hope for, I guess you'd say, in a way that there'd be a recognition of what you were really doing. In naturalism, this recognition of what you're really doing or the implications of it in the moral landscape means nothing. Naturalism basically says, you know, I understand that you see the moral issue with what you've done. However, life doesn't give a crap. And in a way, this kind of almost um, vitriolic reaction to the realistic perspective of, hey, here's what happens when you go through this experience. This is the lesson that you learn, and it is a good lesson to get. Naturalism comes along and goes, oh, you've learned a lesson? You're still going to die. So it's a very, it's kind of a very jarring kind of period in literature that I would say that we still experience in some ways. Um, Now, the stories that we read, as Christopher mentioned specifically, Gilman, Crane, Washington, and Du Bois, all recommend different ways of encountering this recognition, right? Um, the idea that you are caught in something bigger than yourself, and that no matter what you think or how you explore it, you may not be able to come to some great understanding. And I think that's a good point that both Christopher and Tara kind of focused on, this notion that this uncontrollable will is all around you. Um, the Yellow Wallpaper is probably one of the more interesting texts in the sense that it does reference or recommend a set of understandings that are never fully realized. Now, it's also been seen as a text in some ways that is also feminist in nature, in that it is expressing the role that a woman might go through in a period or in a place that's oppressive, right? And the Yellow Wallpaper has been read quite a bit. Um, I think that Timothy's observations, specifically about the open boat, also capture a lot of what you guys are going through when you're reading this. You know, there is this feeling of defeat and helplessness. There is this sense that Crane is proposing that this stuff it's just all too much, but it is what's going to happen. Um, Timothy, great response back to Tara. You use specific incidents as evidence. That's fantastic. And Tara, good response back to Tim. Um, Cami, I appreciate that you kind of really took and drilled down a little bit into why Gilman wrote The Yellow Wallpaper and what she said in her essay. I think it's important for us to understand sometimes when we're reading that authors are aware of the power of the words that they put down. They may not know what we're going to do with them, but they do have a sense that there is something going on, that there is a greater purpose per se. Um, Now, I will also recommend that as you kind of move into um, into this kind of understanding, that you also begin to think that there are times that the author has no idea how it's going to be done, and I think that's important. Um, Kiera mentioned in reference that, this notion that depression and mental illness factored in too. And I think that is something that has been talked a lot about. Katrina Spencer also mentioned that too. And that is you could see that as an overwhelming kind of reaction that a woman could not escape at that time. And that would be a great topic for naturalism, right? Like, I'm a woman, I'm oppressed, I'm not going to be able to, even if I have a moral awareness, able to escape this system that I'm in. Um, Dakota mentioned too about the readings from specifically Up from Slavery, which is Booker T. Washington's treatise. Booker T. Washington was one of the larger proponents for how to deal with the oppressive and well, expressive results of the, I guess you'd say, um, the changing landscape that many African Americans were dealing with, and the oppressive nature that surrounded them, and the awareness that they were kind of in this sense not able to rise above it. And I think his answer to that conundrum was like, here's how you go about it. Now, W.E.B. Du Bois had a very different way of engaging that, and we'll kind of come to that observation too. I see that both Amanda Quick also referenced some of the Booker T. Washington. Now, um, now I will say, Daniel, I'm not sure what story you read. The Yellow Wallpaper is not by Kate Chopin. It's by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So this is, well, I think you got the story right. Your citations are not correct. So you probably want to go in and edit this because it is written by Charlotte Perkins Gilman's. So just FYI. And you have it right here, but you don't have it right here. So not quite sure what happens. Matthew, I think you did a good job of integrating W.E.B. Du Bois from the Souls of Black Folks, because what he was dealing with, which was very different than Booker T. Well, Booker T. Washington and Du Bois were dealing with the same sense of like, okay, we come to a realization that what's going on around us is not a good situation, and we need to figure out how we can come at addressing how we deal as a people with this situation. Booker T. Washington said, there were these contributions that we needed to make, and we need to kind of all of us, like the whole, boat rises. Where W.E.B. Du Bois said there's the talented tenth, and we need to work hard to get those individuals into those places. And I think we have to remember that these are, as Matthew mentions, two sides to the coin. Sharon actually also focused on this too, this idea that, they are powerful accounts, but I will also say that while The Open Boat and The Yellow Wallpaper are both stories, the Souls of Black Folk and Up from Slavery are essays. So we have different perspectives and different genres. Um, I see that Matthew and I would urge you, Matthew, to get a little bit more into your responses just so that your reader is able to kind of see and understand where you're going. Um, I also appreciate, Amanda, you sharing, this struggle that you also see as a personal experience too. And I think that's important, and that's one of the reasons why naturalism as a movement and as a period still resonates with us, is because there are times in our lives when we do feel that the world that we're living with is oppressive and is out to get us, or is out to keep us down, or is out to do this. And no matter what recognition we have of the greater good, or the moral imperative, or even of the truly vindicated decision, we're still going to get pushed down. And I think how we deal with that as a person, and then how we deal with that as a group, and then how we deal with that as a sense in a humane way, is really what the naturalists are dealing with. They're trying to figure out, like, in the face of this grand void of pessimism, what is the way out, or what is a way of, if nothing else, reconciling that. Now, I know Nicole also mentioned kind of the notion specifically that that this positionality, of being oppressed or being put down, is kind of where this comes from. And I would agree that there is a sense that this naturalistic tone has to come from the disenfranchised. However, I also want to point out that both Gilman Charlotte Perkins Gilman and Stephen Crane were fairly successful, even if they were oppressed in this way or they experienced. Many of you probably know Stephen Crane from the Red Badge of Courage. He was, he did fight in the Civil War, so there is that trauma that he wore. And of course, Gilman, there's been many instances that she has been pointed out as having experienced some tremendous mental issues, and that the bravery of her writing some of these stories and these engagements were not just about wanting to get out her voice, but because she had the privilege to be able to write this. Now, we can also see, like in Larry's observation, that there is a sense specifically of darkness. And I'm going to urge you that as we shift from naturalism to a different perspective, we're going to have a different kind of outcome. I know Elena mentioned that she enjoyed the naturalistic style, and it is relatable and enjoyable. There is oppression and depression, and there is a hope there, I guess you would say, when you exit it. Kiara mentioned specifically, and I think it's important to know that, like, we, we have the mundane being used, like being in a room or being in required to be educated or having a sense of fighting oppression or of just the simple everyday existence being kind of elevated. Just to let you know, Kiara, as far as the citations go, we do want to, you do want to follow MLA, and this looks like APA, so just FYI. And then, okay, Brandy also kind of focused on the madness in the story, which is good. Billy pulled in to the cynical aspects of it, which is a good element. It is very cynical. Jonathan mentioned, the symbolism, and I think it is important to see the symbolism. Like, what is it about this yellow wallpaper, or what is it about this lifeboat, this rowing lifeboat that's struck out to sea, that's trying to get to shore? Like, what does that symbolize to us, and how could we maybe see that operating? I think that's another component of naturalism that wasn't as apparent in realism. Julia, I would recommend that you might want to look at the formatting. It looks like there's a little bit off. Leslie, excellent connections here. It's not Norton, though. That would be Gilman. Always put the author that you're citing. But great response back to Julia, Leslie. Thank you for sharing. Overall, I think you guys did a great job of engaging the materials. Remember, as we shift from Unit 3 and now we're into Unit 4, we will be getting ready for that midterm in Unit 6. The midterm becomes available to you on February 10th, and it is proctored. In Unit 4, we're going to be shifting into poetry. And we're also going to be shifting into the modern period. The modern period, according to Virginia Woolf, started on December 10th, 1913. And that was when basically she's recognizing the implications of World War I. You're going to see in Moores and Pound's poetry a sense of that frustration. And in Eliot's The Wasteland, this is an encyclopedia of what's been going on before the time period and how they're reacting to it. Please take a look at this little short half-hour podcast, and then if you look here, the metaphor podcast for metaphor, I take you through some stuff that's also helpful. Remember, you will be posting your discussion posting, and I look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you guys for your work this week, and I promise you that modernism is pessimistic, but it is not as pessimistic as naturalism. Thanks so much, and have a great day.